Hey guys, here we go again. We're ready to take some notes. Please make sure that you have your paper and pencil out and you're ready to follow along with me as we go through these. So you've been working so hard at multiplying fractions, now we're ready to move on to dividing. And today we're actually going to be using models or pictures to help us see what is actually happening when we're dividing with fractions. Okay, so first off, just a reminder, whenever we have a division problem, that first number is called the dividend. Go ahead and label that with me. And the number that we are dividing by is called the divisor. Okay, so we're going to start out. If we have a problem like 4 divided by 1/2, we want to think about what that actually means. Okay, so a lot of you might be thinking that 4 divided by 1/2 is equal to 2. Okay, but it's not. 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2, but dividing by 2 and dividing by 1/2 are not the same. Okay, 4 divided by 1/2 would actually mean how many halves can we get out of 4? Okay, go ahead and write that with me. How many halves can we get out of 4? Okay, how many halves can we get out of 4? So we're going to draw just a real simple picture to help us see what that would look like. Okay, imagine if you had 4 candy bars in front of you. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a simple rectangle to represent those candy bars. And I'm going to split each one in half. Okay, and then we can count how many halves are there in 4. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 4 divided by 1/2 is actually equal to 8. Okay, now you might be thinking, how can that even be possible? Because we're dividing, and whenever we divide, our numbers are supposed to get smaller. So how did we start out with 4 candy bars and end up with 8 as our quotient? Well, you see, we're dividing by a fraction, or a number that's smaller than 1. Okay, so we broke each of those candy bars into smaller parts, so that gave us more of those parts. Okay, anytime you divide by a number that's less than 1, whether it be a fraction or a decimal, the quotient will always get bigger. When you divide by a number that is less than 1, the quotient gets bigger. Okay, let's keep going here. We're going to do a couple more examples. Okay, the next one, what is 3 divided by 1/2? So we're going to make a model for each one of these, okay? Which means we're going to draw a picture. Whenever you make a picture, you always start with your dividend. We need to represent that number. So I'm going to stick with my rectangles, or candy bars, as we like to think of them. Okay, I have 3 candy bars, and I'm dividing it by 1/2. So again, that means how many halves can I get out of 3? Okay, so here's my 3 candy bars. I want to see how many halves I can get, so I'll cut each one in half, and then I can count those up, and you'll see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So our quotient is 6. There are 6 halves in 3 candy bars. Okay, number 2, what is 3 divided by 1/4? Again, we'll start out with our 3 candy bars, but this time we need to see how many fourths we can get out of 3. So that denominator tells us how many parts we have to break our rectangles into. Okay, so I split it into fourths. Then I could count up and see how many fourths there are in 3. When you count all of those, you're going to get 12. And number 3, what is 3 divided by 1/3? So that means how many thirds can we get out of 3? Okay, my dividend is still 3, so I'm going to start with 3 rectangles. I'm going to split those each into thirds, and then I can count to see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. Now, do you see anything, any sort of pattern here? So it kind of seems like we could just take the whole number times our denominator, and that will give us the quotient. Whole number times denominator gives us the quotient. Interesting. Okay, let's keep that in mind as we move along here. All right, down at the bottom it says a fraction that has 1 as its numerator. So notice each of these fractions that we divided by today have 1 as the numerator. Okay, the numerator is the top number in our fraction. So anytime you have a fraction with 1 as the numerator, we call that a unit fraction. Unit fraction. There's just one part out of all of it. Okay, if you would, flip your paper over. We are going to do another example here. We're going to see a situation where we would take a whole number and we're going to divide it by a fraction, and this time it's not going to be a unit fraction. Okay, so here it says Madison has 6 cups of flour. Go ahead and underline the important information right along with me. She uses 3/4 of a cup of flour to make a cake. How many cakes can she make? All right, so she's got 6 cups of flour to begin with, and she needs to break that into 3/4 cup servings that she can use for each cake. To figure this out, we're going to think how many 3/4 are in 6. Okay, so as I mentioned before, the first number in our problem, or the dividend, is what is being divided up. So in this case, she's splitting up 6 cups of flour. That's going to be our starting amount. So my expression, or that's just a fancy word for math problem, is going to be 6 divided by 3/4. Okay, we're trying to see how many 3/4 we can get out of 6. Now, to make our model, again, we start with that dividend. So we're going to start by representing 6. I'm going to use my same old rectangles here. I have 6 rectangles, okay, and I have to count how many 3/4 I can get out of 6. So I'm going to split each of those into 4ths. Okay, remember, you can always stop the video if you need to and catch up. Okay, now that I have my 6 rectangles and I split them into 4ths, I need to see how many 3/4 I can get out of those 6. So I'm just going to circle my groups. Like here's 3/4, here's 3/4, here's another. Okay, I'm circling 3/4 or 3 parts. And then I could even make circles down here, 3/4, and here's 3/4. Okay, and now if I count up how many of those groups I have, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we could say that she could get 8 of those 3/4 cup servings out of 6 cups of flour, which means she would be able to make 8 cakes with 6 cups of flour. All right, guys, remember you can always go back and replay that if you need to, if you didn't quite get it the first time. So I want you to pause the video and you're going to try this next problem on your own. And then once you have it finished, go ahead and hit play and you can check to see if you got the answer correct. Good luck!